One of the biggest mysteries of the Stranger Things universe is the Upside Down. This dimension in which everything seems to have been destroyed by the Mind Flayer and his monsters. 11 is the only one who has managed to face these monsters to prevent the world as we know it from being destroyed. But what if we have misunderstood? If really the Upside Down is the future of humanity? This theory begins with the end of Stranger Things. The gate that connects the world with the Upside Down is closed thanks to Hopper's sacrifice. The lifeless body of the monster that uses the Mind Flayer falls to the ground because the connection with the world has been broken by closing the gate. However, we see how in the later scenes the Russians are experimenting with a Demogorgon. This story doesn't make sense unless that Demogorgon doesn't belong to the Upside Down. The monsters of the Upside Down lost their lives when the crack closed because they were controlled by the Mind Flayer. But this new Demogorgon that we see with the Russians didn't lose his life, nor his connection with the world has been cut because, in reality, he is the first Demogorgon that exists. Let me explain it. The scientists led by Dr. Brenner used psychedelic drugs on pregnant women to generate supernatural powers in children, then did experiments with these children to use them as weapons. Some developed telekinetic psychic powers, and even others were able to travel through time. Time travel is something that officially exists in this story, but we will talk about this later. The point is that the US government did experiments to create superhumans, which means that in other countries, scientists would be doing the same. This would explain why Russians were trying to open the gate to the other side. They really wanted to capture some Demogorgon or some species to do experiments and also turn it into a weapon for themselves. But the gate was closed. However, there are some traces of the bodies of these monsters everywhere. Thanks to advances in genetics, Russian scientists were able to take samples of these beings and begin to replicate them. After all, they are organic beings that can be studied in the laboratory. Perhaps the Russians tried to create a clone of a Demogorgon, giving life to this creature and feeding it with prisoners.
Не американцы.
Прошу вас, не надо, нет, пожалуйста, не надо.
Now, this theory begins to get complicated. If the Upside Down is our world, this would mean that the experiment of the Russians got out of hand. The Demogorgon created by them began to infect the entire planet. They began to assimilate other animals and other humans. In recently leaked photographs of Season 4 of Stranger Things, we can see how several houses are being overgrown with ropey, root-like tendrils and biological membranes covering practically every surface, as if little by little the world was becoming that other place. Will had visions about the world where they are, how it had transformed into the Upside Down, and how the Mind Flayer controlled everything. Here begins the most interesting part of this theory. What if 11 didn't really connect with monsters from another place, but rather connected with beings from the future? There is a Stranger Things comic book titled Stranger Things: Suspicious Minds. The first official tie-in book is actually a prequel, which delves into the backstory of Dr. Brenner's initial experiments. In the novel, a young student called Terry Ives infiltrates the lab and encounters Alice, a test subject who's developed the power to see through time. At one point, she even has a vision of the Demogorgon and 11 herself in the future. Alice managed to escape from Brenner's hands, faked her death, and moved to Canada, which is why she's a character that is still alive and opens the door to time travel. Now, if this theory is correct, what 11 came in contact with in the first season was not another dimension, but rather the future. This could explain why she has such a great connection with this place, because it's our own world. It also explains why it's so similar. They have the same buildings and even the same streets. The difference is that it's completely different because it is adapted to the environment of these monsters. But if Upside Down really is the future, will the Russians end up creating the Mind Flayer? This is where this theory gets a little dark. If this story is real, the connection of 11 with the Mind Flayer is bigger than we imagined. We previously theorized that 11 could end up becoming the villain of this series. But what would you think if I told you that if this was the case, 11 could really be the Mind Flayer? And if you want to know everything related to the universe of Stranger Things, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because we will be uploading videos every day with the news of Stranger Things Season 4, theories, rumors, and analysis in detail. You're in Stranger Things Geeks.